For DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden, and welcome back to the Brian Cole story. I think we are on episode 5 now, Brian. Holy cow.
Yeah.
It's flying by. And I feel like
It
we
is.
haven't really gotten that far in your life yet.
Yep.
So we left off, well, first of all, if anyone wants to watch our previous shows, the first 4 episodes, we air these on Sundays on our YouTube channel. So you can just go to youtube.com/DrydenWire or just go to YouTube and search DrydenWire. And we actually have a playlist called The Brian Cole Story. Very original, I know. And so you can go and watch the other episodes. Again, we air these on Sundays. Brian, where'd we leave off?
I think we left off when the stuff happened at Kettle Moraine Correctional Institution and I ended up in the hole.
That's right, the hole. I think we got through is that about 3 years in?
Yeah, about 4 years in.
4 years in. So this is 4 years into a 9-year prison sentence, almost a 10-year prison sentence.
Yeah.
That was your first prison sentence. So what are we discussing today? I'm assuming continuing on this, is this the rest is just, jail stuff. Or is there, let's slow down, let's make sure we get through the rest of your first prison sentence.
Yeah, let's slow down and get through the rest of the first prison sentence.
Okay,
What's
so
going on in my mind?
Right, all right. So let's pick up right there, and maybe we touched on this last week, but in the hole, what's that like?
It wasn't nice. I guess at that time I really didn't mind prison. I was used to it. And, but the whole, that's something completely different. You're segregated. You're locked in, 23 and a half hours a day. You get out once in a while for a little bit of rec time in a little cage, and a shower now and then. And, there's every time you come out of your room, whether it's for the little walk around time in the little cage or a shower or whatever, they come in, they have you put your hands through the bars, they cuff you, and then they, got the rubber gloves on and, bend over, cough, everything else before you come in, and same thing, or come out, and same thing before you go back in. You're strip searched and, fed in your rooms, and you only get, like one book in your room. They come around with a little cart now and then with some books on it. And so, it's not a pleasant thing. It wasn't. I hated going to the hole. That's both the thing I really did not look forward to is going to the hole. I spent a lot of time there, though, between that incident at Kettle Moraine and different conduct reports I was getting and stuff. I'd be in the hole a lot for a few days at a time. But this one was a pretty long one. I don't remember if I spent 3 months or 6 months in segregation there at Green Bay when they shipped me back to Green Bay.
That's almost dehumanizing.
It is. It is a lot of stuff going on. Obviously, just like kind of with the cell halls, you don't get much sleep because you got guys in there that are on different sleeping schedules, I guess you could call it. So you got people screaming back and forth all day and all night, and there's just no sleep. And obviously it's echoey in there, and it's nasty.
Is it effective, do you think? Was it effective for you? Where it's okay? I mean, I'm just assuming this is like the ultimate go to your room. Kind of, right? Obviously, that's wildly different. But what lesson am I learning here? So when you're in there and then you get out, was it man, I never want to go back? Is that kind of the idea of the whole?
I think it is. And I mean, obviously it's effective it's to some people. Some people could care less. I did not like seclusion like that for long periods of time. And again, with all the noise and constant, bickering and yelling and screaming and pounding and rapping and stuff back and forth all day and night, and only getting one book to read. And when you're done with that book, you're screwed until the cart comes by again, whenever they decide they have time to do that. So it was effective for me in that it kept me out of some fights. Because usually, like I said before, a fight is usually an automatic 360, a year in the hole. And you do some of that. There's 2 different kinds of seg. There's adjustment seg and regular seg. And you might get 3 and 360. And that means 3 days in adjustment seg, 360 in regular seg. Adjustment seg, you get nothing. And I mean, they take your blankets and everything away, and there's absolutely nothing. After that, then you can have a book and you can have, certain rights. You can get out to rec. In adjustment seg, there's no rec. You get out for nothing. So it was, like I said, it was effective in that it kept me out of some fights because I didn't really want to go to the hole. But a lot of the guys don't have that in their minds.
And what was your mindset when you were there? Are you like, I can't wait to get out, I'm going to do this? I mean, you were talking before, like when it was Dungeons and Dragons, you were playing that, and you could still do things. And you've talked about getting a little more into that Satanism, etc. Was that where your brain was? Like, where were you mentally this time, and maybe even the other times that you were in the hole?
No, I think it gave me more time to memorize rituals and stuff like that, because one of the books that you can have in your room is a Bible. And of course, I had the Satanic Bible. But at that time, like I said, that was kind of a transition period after that happened in Green at Kettle Moraine. And I said what I said to the guy about killing my mom or sacrificing my mom. And so during this time, my mindset was still on that. And I need to get away from that. I need to have control and power over these demons rather than them having control over me. And that's kind of when I really started diving into Crowleyism, Aleister Crowley. And the book that I got into the room was called the Book of the Law. And that was our main holy book, unholy book, whatever you want to call it, in the hole there. So I was memorizing that whole book. Basically, it's basically 3 chapters long. It's kind of a short book. So yeah, I was memorizing that and reading.
Okay,
and,
then so you get out of there. Then what? You're back in regular population, something like that, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Regular pop. Yep. So this was a time when I started getting into Crowleyism. Now I found out, obviously doing a lot of research and studying on Thelema is the name of the religion. Thelema means will in Greek, and the whole premises of that religion basically is do without will should be the whole of the law. Love is a law, love under will. As a matter of fact, when you meet and greet each other, one person says, do without will should be the whole of the law, and the other person replies back, love is a law, love under will. And there's a lot of numerology, or what we call gematria, in the occult, in the Kabbalah, and Thelema back then. And so the number for Thelema and the number for will, the number for love was 93. So that would be the short version. I'd come and say to somebody 93, and they'd say 93 back to me, and that was like a greeting. Got it. So I started doing a lot more research into the Holy Kabbalah and the Gnostic Catholic Church, which is the religious aspect of Thelema. There's actually temples out there called OTO, Ordo Templi Orientis. Crowley, a lot of people don't know Crowley rewrote the rituals for the Masonic Temple. So the rituals that are part of the OTO and the Masonic Temple are pretty similar with each other. So I started hooking up with individuals in the Ordo Templi Orientis and writing letters to, the higher ups and stuff there, the higher degree people, and they have, within the ecclesiastic Gnostic Catholic Church, they have priests and bishops and everything else, just like in Catholicism, because that's what they stole it from. And so I was writing all these people. I got hooked up with an actual temple that was in Milwaukee, Wisconsin at the time, called the Isis Neptis Camp. And so I hooked up with those people, and I started writing those people. I was writing the higher ups and the hierarchy there in the OTO temples all over the United States, and just getting my stuff established with these people. Eventually, the people from the temple in Milwaukee started coming up and visiting me and writing me and sending me books and everything else. So
hold on real quick.
Yeah.
So I was actually going to ask, but you already, I think, kind of answered that. My question I was going to ask was, you write these people, the higher ups, and you're like, hey, I'm a dude in prison. Did they take you seriously? Or now knowing that they clearly must have, because they even came up, did they look at you as maybe because you were in prison that was somehow better? Or the fact that you were in prison had nothing to do with anything at all? It was just you, and no matter where you were, they were cool with it.
Yeah, they weren't cool with it in the aspect that again, it's kind of like the Masonic Temple. So there's an initiation process. There's various degrees that you have to get initiated into, and you cannot be initiated while you're in prison. So that was the only setback for me. They were all in with me and everything, and they understood my knowledge and my wisdom and what I knew, and they were good with that. But they let me know up front, we can't initiate you. We can't put you through this process until you're released. Otherwise, yeah, they took me full on and loved on me. And again, that was part of the what I really loved about the occult is these people just don't judge you, and they don't, hold your past against you. And
There seems
it's
to be
like,
that
whatever.
reoccurring theme of acceptance,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. I certainly didn't get that in the church, but I got it through paganism. So in writing these guys and in studying, Crowleyism and Thelema and the OTO, I started getting into more and more things. There's another aspect of the OTO called the Golden Dawn. I started getting into the Holy Kabbalah and yoga and Buddhism. As a matter of fact, they had a Buddhist ritual or a Buddhist religious practices in most of the chapels in Wisconsin. So I started going to the Buddhist church service in the chapel in Green Bay there, and that was Nikkei Daishonin Buddhism, where you basically sit and chant Nami Horengekyo, Nami Horengekyo over and over and over into this thing called the Gahanzen. It was kind of occultish because what you're doing is it's kind of the as above so below thing. Is you're while you're chanting, you're visualizing things happening on the astral plane or in the other plane, and when you see the things happening up there, it happens down here. So let's say you got cancer or something, Ben, and I'm chanting for you, and I'm visualizing your cancer being eradicated from your body up there on the astral plane. Therefore, it's going to happen down here. So just into all this, gematria and started really getting into Discordianism, which is exactly what it says. It's discord. It's just anything insane and improper and goofy, and it's actually a religion. I was getting heavy into that because I saw discord everywhere in the world. My life was in discord, and so yeah, just getting into ceremonial magic big time. Started reading these books called like the Greater and Lesser Keys of King Solomon, and this is when I got a tattoo on my arm of one of the seals or sigils in that book of one of the demons that you conjure up to get certain things, and this is where a lot of the fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth books of Moses, the ninth and tenth books of Moses, the keys of King Solomon, all that was all stuff taken from the Bible and lied about. Basically what the story is with the keys to King Solomon is. You remember, King Solomon had the temple and all his riches and all that. Do you know how he got that? Well, he called upon and conjured up all these spirits and demons to get him this stuff and build this stuff for him. And that's what the book told you, and that's what I believed. And, no Christian ever, when I brought that up to him, and saying, hey, do you know how your King Solomon got that? They never said, well, that ain't the story that I know, Yeah. But that's the lies that the enemy works in you. So slowly I'm getting into all this other secret societies and all this other junk, basically. And in the meantime, I'm still fighting the system now. Remember, I said that I was starting to try to confront the system about getting Wiccan pagan religious groups in the system. So now, after I finish my time up there in the hole, and I'm in there for a while, I'm really getting deep into the stuff. These people are coming up. They're sending me books and tarot cards and all this other stuff. And, of course, some of the stuff they're telling me I can't have. And I'm filing ICIs. So pretty soon, during this time, I'm getting shipped all over the place because nobody wants me because I'm fighting the system.
Wait, hold on. Shipped all over like in one prison or?
Different prisons.
I didn't realize that.
Yep. So I'm getting shipped off into different mediums, different minimums, and eventually at one point I was nearing the last, couple 3 years of my sentence or whatever, and this is when they came to me and said, "Listen, part of the thing of going through Dodge, the reason why you go through Dodge is they assess you and decide what they think you should be doing during your time, and they set these different programs and stuff that you have to do, and one of mine was drug program, and at that time was Winnebago Correctional Institution had various amounts of drug programs, some 8 weeks, some 12 weeks, some 6 month, all that. So they said I had to go through this 8-week program. Said, okay, you get, and this is what they tell people: if you get through this program and you successfully complete it, you will be released. And most people are. I mean, you finish that program, you're done with your time, you go home.
Perfect.
So they said, you go through this 8-week program and we'll give you a release. So I successfully completed that program, went to the parole board, and they slammed me with a 12-month defer. And when you get a 12-month defer or more, that means you got more time, at least that time to do. So I'm like,
I'm assuming that stands for deferment.
Yeah. So 12 more months at least. And, because once you get a 12-month defer, That means you got to do that, and then you come off that and you go back to the parole board, and they give you another defer. So I got at least another year to do. So they lied to me, and I'm, of course, pretty ticked off about that.
Yeah.
So they send me to a minimum camp now called Sanger Powers Correctional Institution, just outside of Green Bay, and I was so salty at them. I don't remember what month it was I got there. I was there for a little while, but October was coming up, All Hallows Eve, Halloween, the biggest satanic celebration time of the year. People who celebrate Halloween just don't understand that. And we, back then in my mindset then, I always thought it was so cool that Christians celebrated Halloween because they were celebrating our time. I mean, I wasn't in that deep, but this is when the deep Satanists make big sacrifices of children and everything else during that time. I mean, that's the opening of the veil. That's when it's said that the veil between the outer world and our world is the thinnest, and that's when we can call upon spirits and dead people and stuff to come back, and we can talk with them and ask things from them and all that kind of stuff. So, and it's all in all the stuff that we have in that we making Halloween, whether it's the jack-o'-lanterns or the trick-or-treating and all that. People don't understand where that stuff comes from. But anyway, so it was coming up on October, and I'm like, you know what? I'm out of here. So I got with a couple of guys. One guy was a leather worker, and I had to make me a makeshift backpack. And I had a bunch of other, so they didn't, know what was going on. I had a bunch of people order me, mostly a bunch of corn nuts. I had a backpack basically full of corn nuts. And one night, took that backpack filled with corn nuts, set up my bed so it looked like someone was sleeping in it, and I cut out my screen in the window, jumped out the window, and I took off. And I remember it was late at night. It was probably 2 a.m. when I did that. I got into I heard dogs after a couple hours out following the railroad tracks and all that. And I get into this next town by morning. I didn't get on the roads until then, so I jumped out on the road and hitchhiked. And there was this guy who was writing me. Most of the time I was in prison. He called himself Antares, and he was also into Thelema and all these other occult religions like I was, and he was also into Discordianism, and we would write back and forth all the time and make writings back and forth to each other. We'd take the Bible and we rewrite the Bible into Discordian stuff. So I wanted to meet this guy, and he lived in Aurora, Colorado. So that was my first thing. I got a ride almost right away in that town, and got a ride to Madison.
First of all, hold on a second. We can't gloss over this at all. I mean, prison escape or jail. I mean, that's just fantastic.
It's called
horrible.
a walk away. Yeah.
Well, that's not what I'm calling. I'm not trying to, glorify it or whatever, but it's just so bizarre. Who gives you a ride? I'm just saying, you're still in. What kind of outfit do you have on? If it's like a minimum security, is it like regular clothes?
Yeah, well, even in some maxes, you can have like jeans and stuff like that. Back in the day. All mediums and minimums, you wear your own clothes. So I was in my own clothes. And just had this
I'm like picturing an orange jumpsuit or something.
But I still had really long hair and tattoos all over and everything else. But so not only gave me a ride, but gave me some money and bought me some food. He brought me to Madison. In Madison, I went into the truck stop area, and back in the day, you could go around truck stops way early in the morning and ask people if they needed help unloading and stuff like that. So I was doing that. And I met this couple in a rig that not only hired me on, but like, hey, man, you want to get high? And I'm like, yeah. I mean, I'm just used to these tiny pin joints for $10 on the joint, and he whips out this big doogie, and I'm in there smoking it with him. And so that was the first time in how many years that I've smoked something that big. Yeah. And needless to say, that was the only time in my life I remember smoking weed that I got pretty much blacked out. I mean, I ended up behind a dumpster in the parking lot there and must have fell asleep, and I must have puked because there was a big pile of puke next to me. Nice. So anyway, got with them the next morning. They were there all night. Got with them the next morning. They were just happened to be going to Colorado. So I'm like, can you drop me off as close to Aurora as you can? And they did. And I went and met this guy, Antares, and I stayed at his place for about 2 weeks. And once I got done there, he brought me to another big truck stop in the area, and I actually found a ride to California. That's where I wanted to go, California. That's where all the bigger OTO temples were at, and I wanted to hook up with these people and have a big, celebration for Halloween.
For some reason, that doesn't surprise me. California. Yeah. It's just, I don't know why. It just doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, it's all there, right?
Yeah.
Went to California. Ended up getting with this weird guy. He was a drunk and drank this Mad Dog 2020 stuff. And every time he drank this Mad Dog 2020, he would go into a different mindset, a different personality. And most of the time I was there, he was Batman, straight up. We lived in the Bat House, and it was the Bat Cave, and he had a Batmobile and everything else, and he was just gone. He's a white boy, and his wife was black. And every now and then I'd be smelling this chemical coming out of her room. She didn't come out much. And one day I asked her, what is that chemical I'm smelling? She goes, it's lovely. Have you ever had lovely? And I'm like, what the heck is lovely? And she goes, well, it's marijuana laced with angel's dust. And I'm like, no, I ain't never had no lovely. Can I have some lovely?
Sounds lovely.
You want to share that lovely? He also had a dog, and I remember the first time she had me puffing on that lovely there, I only took a couple, 3 hits. And all I remember is kind of coming to when I was out walking the dog somewhere in the neighborhood. I was lost, and I was just got out of it in my mind. And so I was smoking lovely while I was there, and getting lost a lot. And there was one point where I can't remember what it was, but this guy did something bad. I don't know if he molested a girl at a party he was having there at his Bat Cave or what. He had another junker car sitting outside. But all I know is they were drinking, and I don't like being around people when they drink. So I was, people were coming in, they were drinking. I went out in the car and I fell asleep. Next thing I know, I got flashlight in the car, and I look up and here's the cops, and I'm like, oh man, I'm done. And they opened up the door. They're like, do you live here? I'm like, well, I'm staying with the guy, but they were partying last night, so I slept in the car. And he goes, well, so you don't know what's going on here? And I'm like, no, what? And they said, well, there was an incident here, and we were wondering if you saw it. And I'm like, no, I've been out here since yesterday evening, and they let me go. And I'm like, sweet. This is the only time in my life I remember getting off the hook from something. They
didn't ask for an ID or
no, because I sure didn't have one. Right? Oh man. So yeah, a little while after that, I met this little really cute Spanish girl.
Hold on a second. What happened to that place then?
I don't know. I didn't go back.
So that was it. You never saw him again. Didn't find out what happened. Just I'm out of here, man. If there's cops around here, I can't be here.
That's right. It's too much drama.
Got it.
I was a criminal, but I wasn't that stupid.
I'm dumb, but I'm not stupid.
Criminals are stupid, but not that stupid. So yeah, I left, and I ended up, walking the San Diego beaches for a while. Met this young Spanish girl, real cute. Ended up living with her. So I was there for a while, and then after the whole Halloween thing was over with, and I didn't end up getting hooked up at the OTOs or nothing up there. I was too tuned in on the Spanish girl. After Halloween was over, I'm like, you know what? I'm done. I'm ready to turn myself in and get this over with now. Yeah, my whole mindset was just to be out for Halloween. I was sick of the way they treated me. They lied to me. I'm going to show them who's boss, and then I'll go back and do the rest of my time. So ended up going back. I called in.
You're in California. You just called them over Wisconsin. Like, hey, can you come pick me up?
Yeah. And this is where how bad my mind was. I had somebody do it for me. I don't remember if it was the Spanish girl or somebody else, but I'm like, can you call the cops? I'm going to act like I'm deaf and dumb. Just tell him that this guy can't talk and he's a Wisconsin inmate and he's on the run. He wants to turn himself in and all that. Cops came. Eventually they figured out I wasn't deaf and dumb, and they ended up. I ended up going to the county jail in San Diego, what they call the big fish tank. That was a whole new experience. Sounds nice. There. Yeah, so what it is basically one big fish tank, and a whole bunch of really naughty, drugged up, drunked up people in there, and. So I was in there for probably close to a month before they extradited me back, and I remember there was a couple stops at a couple prisons where we ate and showered, and then came back to Wisconsin, and that's when they threw me in the hole at Waupun Correctional Institution this time. So here I am in Waupun. I got 2 extra years for being a walkaway. And I don't remember if it was 180 or something like that, 3 and 180 in the hole. And So yeah, and now I got to experience what they call the greenhouse, which is the hole in Waupun. And,
See,
that
these
was
all these words I've, the
greenhouse, 'cause
fishbowl
it was
and the
green.
greenhouse. It sounds wonderful.
Yeah,
Yeah, no.
ask my wife about what I think about the color green.
But
But anyway,
right. Yeah.
so yeah, I ended up going
So what
there.
year are we? You originally got 9 years and
Yeah,
10 months?
this was
Something?
late '89-ish,
Okay.
or maybe very early '90-ish. And this is where the one. Remember, I said I used to keep journals back then, but I destroyed them all. I kept one,
Yep.
and the one I kept was during this period. So every now and then I like to look back on that.
So where were you though in terms of your total sentence? Are we talking like 6 years in now, 7, 8 years?
Yeah, I got about 7 or 8 years in now.
Okay,
Yep.
and you have 2 years left.
Well, I got a couple years left, plus I got 2 years for the walk away now added onto the sentence, and
So you really had 4 years left.
yeah.
Ugh.
Yep. But again, back then you didn't. As long as you did 3/4 of your time, you could be released at any time.
Okay.
We were what they call the old law. I was under the old law,
All right.
2/3.
So
Yep.
you're in, was it Waupun? Was that the name of
Waupun.
it?
Big
And
cast.
did you behave for the last time? Because I'm like, all right, I really do actually. You were just out for a little bit.
No, I did not.
Come to
behave.
find out, that was actually kind of nice being out. I'm just going to behave. So
Yeah.
get out of here.
No.
No.
So I got back.
No,
to
I didn't do
Waupun
that
where
at all.
I left. I picked up where I left off with fighting the system for the Wiccan pagan religious groups, and so now we're in about 1990ish. I don't remember how much time I ended up doing it at Waupun, but then they shipped me over to Fox Lake Correctional Institution, which is a medium, and that was about 1990ish, 1991, and that is when, after 6 years or so of fighting the system, the Wiccan pagan religious groups were finally approved by the state of Wisconsin. So I won. And there was
Wow.
a big win. And there's a lot of people, a lot of wannabe Wiccan groups out there that claim that they're the ones that did, they got these groups started and all that. No, it was me. And I
That's
used to have all the
crazy.
paperwork to prove it, but I don't even care anymore. All that I destroyed all that with everything else. All I know is I fought the battle. I won. Obviously these people from the OTO and stuff, they helped me. As soon as it got approved, some things happened. These people from the OTO, I told them about it, and I said, okay, now we can have stuff. So can you guys go out and get donations for us so we can have an altar and the chalice and all this other stuff,
Yeah.
and books and stuff like that. All the prisons need them, but I'm in Fox Lake right now. Let's ship a bunch of stuff here so we can get going.
Yeah.
At that time, I also right away I ordered what's called a unicursal hexagram, which was one of the symbols of sex symbols of Aleister Crowley. It's actually tattooed here on my finger. So I ordered a necklace of that, and right away this guy, who was I believe the program director, not the security director, I think he was a program director at the time, he denied, when it came in, he denied me having it, and we ended up battling back and forth, and he got smart with me, and that's one of the times I went back to my Satanism stuff, and I did a destruction ritual on this guy. And just so I don't forget, I'll fast forward about not even a year later. The news went all over the prison as far as rumor mongering about it. But then the news came out on the TV that this guy evidently got caught up with a whole bunch of child porn stuff and all that, and he went out to a park somewhere and he shot himself. So that was a win for me too, because me and this guy did not get along, and he was trying to deny everything that was coming in after everything got approved. And so the OTO was helping, and this big business where I used to get most of my stuff, called The Abyss, helped, and they sent a bunch of free stuff for the group, and we started having our Wiccan pagan religious groups every week in the chapel, and I was in charge of that, and it was all good right there.
Yeah, everything that you have been kind of fighting for.
Yep.
And you are empowered now.
Yep. Big time.
And you're accepted in prison. You had stated before that some guards are scared of you.
Yeah.
Other people are scared of you. You've gotten this done, which has to just make you feel amazing, right?
Yep.
It just absolutely does. So life is great. I mean, in that kind of a life.
Yeah, pretty much. It was
This
a
is really
constant
nice,
battle,
actually.
but, yeah. it was a constant battle even after then, but I was still winning most of the stuff because it was already approved. And there's that kind of a time where when something new gets approved in the system, it takes a while for all the guards and everybody, all the prisons to get up to par on what's accepted and what ain't. So we were kind of making the rules back then as far as what was being allowed and what wasn't. So anyway, fast forward now, they shipped me off. I'm doing a couple more years, and they shipped me off to a minimum security camp in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, because my whole idea was I was going to get out and move into this temple.
Yes.
And really kicking it with these guys a lot. And so I get shipped to this minimum camp. And now that I'm there, even though you can't be initiated into the degree system in the OTO, you can get baptized into the Ordo Templi Orientis or the Ecclesiastic Gnostic Catholic Church, and you can also be ordained as a priest. So I was talking with a guy named Bishop Landuquette at the time, who is one of the bishops of the OTO. And he was coming down to pay a visit to the Isis Neptis camp in Milwaukee. And I'm like, hey, while you're here, can you come over to the prison and baptize me and ordain me? And he said, by all means. So I actually was baptized into the Ordo Templi Orientis and ordained as a priest into the Gnostic Catholic Church by Bishop Landuquette back in about 1993. In a prison system. They wouldn't let us do it in private. They made us do it out in the outside visiting area, which was cool by me.
Right.
And it was awesome because here's this big ritual going on. And even at one point, the guy slapped me upside my face really hard. It was part of the ritual to get my attention about what he was about to say. So that was pretty dramatic out there. The guards were like, what's going on? Do we need it?
Right.
So yeah, I was ordained as a high priest of the Ecclesiastic Gnostic Catholic Church and baptized into the Ecclesiastic Gnostic Catholic Church. And after however long it was that I was there, I ended up being released to the people there at the Isis Neptis camp. Sharon and Andy was their name. She was a high priestess of the camp, and he was high priest of the camp. So
now, when you say camp, and I'm sure that's what we're getting into on the next episode, but is that like tents?
No. There's different definitions for the OTOs. There's camps, there's temples, and it decides on the size of the group.
Sure. So the camp would be one-story house, right?
Yeah, camp would be less than 10 people.
Yeah. The next one, that's a temple is a two-story house.
Yeah.
Sorry, not trying to make fun of it. I'm trying to wrap my brain around all this stuff, man.
Yeah. So 1993. Got released and moved into the Isis Neptis camp there in Milwaukee, and that was the start of a whole new phase of my life, and obviously got worse from there.
Of course it has to. Just to circle back there, or to touch on that, your time in prison. So two things. One, at the very end here, it seems like things are going really well. Did you actually, as well as they could, because you're still in prison, but at the same time, you kind of, that's your place, man, and you have the respect and you have all this stuff. Did you almost kind of not want to get out? I shouldn't say not want to get out, but I actually pretty much have everything that I've ever asked for and that I've wanted, and this is actually pretty good.
No, not at all.
No, okay.
I'm ready. I'm ready for the whole new, I have all this. Again, all I did was read and memorize and practice, and so I
that
have
was like your training.
Yeah, that was.
And now you're
training.
going out into the proverbial mission field, right?
Yep.
Wow. And to put a bow on your first sentence, how long were you in prison for total?
I did about that 9 years, 9 months.
9 years, 9 months. It was just kind of weird. How it worked, because you got 2 extra, but then it's 3/4. Okay, so almost 10 years.
Yep.
And
10 years.
So we always like to end the show. I think we went a little over, but that's fine. I really wanted to. I'm glad we kind of got through this part. What's your takeaway here for those nearly 10 years in prison?
Yeah, again, I think, one of the things that we can probably even stay on for a while is just the identity and the influence in lives and the people that we decide to hang out with. And once again, last week, I think was the first time I said anything about Jesus or God. Once we step away from what the Bible says about who we are, when we step away from who the creator of the universe and the creator of us says who we are, and we start looking to other things, the enemy's always going to be there to dangle, your new identity in front of you. We're doing a series right now on our Biker Sundays called Identity Theft, and how, the enemy uses things and allows us to have that identity ripped away from us because he's real quick to hand you one. All the way back from that time in the trees there with those kids with the cigarette. That was the very first identity theft going on there, because that was the first time I looked away from what God had for me and what God said I was, and allowed the enemy to say, no, this is who you are. I'm gonna make you this. And the farther you step, here's the thing. Typically when I go out and I speak, especially to those with addictions or in prison or whatever, I always bring up Romans chapter 1. And Romans chapter 1 is a perfect example of that early stage in my life, and really the early stage in anyone's life, where they do trade the truth for a lie. And they think their foolish hearts become darkened, and they think they're wiser than God, and they say, I don't need God, I don't believe in God, whatever it is. And instead of worshiping the creator, they worship creation. And God ends, they start getting into the things, worshiping, man, birds, 4-footed animals, and pretty soon you're crawling on your belly like a serpent. And it says at that point, God turns you over to yourself. So I was turned over to myself long ago, and not a good place to be, because, people have the saying of sometimes people have to hit their rock bottom. I don't believe in that at all, because a lot of people's rock bottom is death, especially in the drug game. And when you hit rock bottom with a situation like that and you're so far gone, Hebrews is pretty clear that some people, man, there's a point in their life where they can't come back. It's done, and their souls are gone for eternity, and they're going to be in that other place that we don't want anybody to be in. So I think the identity thing and the influence that we really got to be careful who we're hanging out with, because
that seems to be a theme of all these shows.
I tell the kids at school all the time, man, you show me your friends, I'll show you where you'll be in 5 years. Heck, I'll show you where you'll be next year. It's all who you hang with.
That's really good. I like that. I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
But boy, imagine if we all did. It's like that dumb question people ask in interviews. It's not dumb. It's just that everybody asks it, and it's just stupid. Is where do you see yourself in 5 years? I remember when they asked me that once, I said, not here. And that kind of took them back a little bit. So I'm like, well, really? I'm like, yeah. Why would I want to be at the same job for 5 years? That means either I'm not bad enough to get fired, but I'm not good enough to get promoted. So I'm just stuck for fun. No, thank you. So I'll give it 3 years and we'll reassess. But that's a really good way to look at it. If talking about friends, and if you hang around with them in that group, think about that. That's who you will be in 2 years.
It is. Definitely. No doubt, no question. That's the problem with our recidivism rate and stuff in the prisons. People come out and they hook right back up with the stupid people who didn't care about them before, and they go right back to the same people, and they keep going through that revolving door.
And I just have it's not really a takeaway, but just an observation. It's so bizarre to me that people get arrested for drugs, they go to prison, and they do drugs. You had mentioned that. It's like, yeah, in this place, a whole bunch of drunk people, and everyone's all drugged up. But what? I kind of feel like maybe that shouldn't be in prison. And it's a controlled environment. How in the world does that get in? That's for a whole other thing. It's just really weird to me, because that's probably not helping.
Yeah, it's not. And that's one of the other things I talk to the kids about and people in addictions. It's like, this is how powerful addiction is. Even though, up to that point, up to my first arrest, obviously there was a lot of acid and mushrooms and peyote and crack was probably one of my big things going on. That whole 9 years, 9 months I did, all I could think about every day, besides women, getting out and getting with women, was, man, I can't wait to get out and get that first hit off the pipe. Every year for 9.5 years.
Wow, that's powerful.
The power of addiction. Yep, that and cigarettes too. I can't wait to get out. Hit that first puff. Back then, you could still smoke, so you were you still could smoke in prison. You can't anymore, but so that kind of a mindset people have. And I picked 2 guys up from prison already, and regardless of how long they did, that's the first thing they did. Even though I said I wouldn't, bring them a pack of cigarettes or something, they had somebody else that they got released with, and their people brought them the cigarettes. So they would meet with them, get that pack before they would come to my car. But that's power of addiction, regardless of how long you're locked up. That's all you think about.
All right. So our next show is, you're out of prison now, and you're going to be hitting it fast and hard, right? I mean, this is all lining up. Everything in that almost 10 years in prison and all that communication, everything gotten done. You're now baptized. You're now what's your title again?
I was a high priest of the ecclesiastic Gnostic Catholic Church.
That's quite the business card.
Yeah.
You have to put an acronym on that or something. But yeah, it's legit now for you, and now you got to go out into the world. And I guess we'll leave it there, and we'll pick back up next week.
Yes, sir.
Brian, thanks so much. It's always a pleasure talking to you, getting to know you. I love you, man. We'll see you next week.
All right, brother. Love you, man.